Alright guys, welcome to part 2 of my How to Get Into Star Wars series. If you made it this far, you probably watched all the movies, or at least all 9 of the main episodic ones. And I'm guessing you're just fiending for more Star Wars. Like you get a Star Wars itch, you just need to surround yourself in the universe. Okay, maybe not that extreme, but you want more.
I want more. And I know I shouldn't.
And so the next step from the movies is to get into the TV shows. And thanks to Disney Plus, there are now quite a few TV shows in the Star Wars universe. Maybe even too many. And you, the humble viewer, would want to know where to start. Luckily, these TV shows are a lot more flexible in where you can start. You see, you have 2 main types of TV shows, animated and live action. Basically, both of these begin with either the Clone Wars or the Mandalorian respectively. But is there a viewing order for the rest of this stuff? Yes and no. Some shows are standalone and can be watched in isolation, but other shows do need to be watched in a certain order to understand the next one, unfortunately. But don't worry, I, Donker will help you guys by explaining what these TV shows are and when to watch them. In other words, I will be your TV guide. Let's begin. We are starting off with the animated shows, mostly because of the release order, but also because our first show, The Clone Wars, is one of my personal favorite TV shows of all time. Top 2 for sure. Star Wars, The Clone Wars, or TCW, contains 7 seasons and a theatrical film, and is the backbone, the spine even, of the newer Star Wars expanded universe. Taking place between Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, The Clone Wars follows our prequel trilogy heroes, mainly Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, on many adventures during the titular war. This show is an anthology, with many different stories from many different characters. But for the most part, the show follows new character Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's Padawan apprentice. Ahsoka would be the largest thing to come from the Clone Wars. She would appear in future shows, and even in live action. She'll start off the show young and possibly even annoying, but as the show goes on, she learns and grows, becoming one of the most compelling Star Wars characters of all time. This show would also go on to develop many characters that are only in the background in the prequels, like Plo Koon, Barriss Offee, Evan Peel, Commander Cody, and even this one clone commander that you see for a sec in Attack of the Clones gets a name and some story. And if you look close enough, you may see some original trilogy people show up, like Tarkin and Boba Fett. Asajj Ventress, who technically appeared before this show, has an amazing character arc throughout. Then there's the new characters alongside Ahsoka, starting with our boy Captain Rex, who would also come back in other things. The clone troopers in general gain a voice from the show, as we see these huge battles from their perspective, and which will make the events of Revenge of the Sith that much more tragic. We also get bounty hunter Cad Bane and the pirate Hondo Ohnaka, and the Night Sisters, and the Mandalorians, including a certain redhead who will come back later. This show being an anthology is both great and a little messy. It's messy because technically the release order of the movie and the episodes aren't in timeline order. What I mean is, even though the movie came out first, there are 2 episodes of the show that take place before, and that's just one situation. But I think as long as you are aware of this, it won't be an issue. You can either watch in timeline order or release order, but unfortunately, Disney doesn't offer the timeline order on their app. Yet. But because it's an anthology, you can get away with skipping certain episodes if you are on a time crunch. It is 7 seasons after all. The important things that happen in this show that affect the rest of the timeline are as follows, and there are a lot. The Clone Wars film, which is what you would watch first, introduces Ahsoka Tano and begins her role as Anakin's Padawan. There's the Rookies arc where we meet Fives and Echo, the Dooku Captured arc which introduces Hondo, the Ryloth arc that introduces Sham Syndulla, and just to rapid fire the rest, there's the Cad Bane Holocron arc, the Second Battle of Geonosis, the Deserter arc where we meet Cut Lawquane, the Mandalorian arc, the Boba Fett arc, the Politics arc, the Night Sisters arc, the Mortis arc, the Umbara arc, the Return of Darth Maul, which is arguably the most important event from the show, the Onderon arc that introduces Saw Gerrera, the Order 66 arc, the Yoda arc, the Bad Batch arc, and lastly, the Siege of Mandalore. And that's just the stuff that is directly continued in later shows. The stuff I didn't mention is still amazing and essential viewing. Last I will say is this, the final 4 episodes of the show take place during Revenge of the Sith, wrapping everything up. In my opinion, if you find an edit of Revenge of the Sith with these 4 episodes spliced in, that may be the second greatest Star Wars movie ever made, just under Empire Strikes Back. Fun fact, the show originally got cancelled after season 6, but later on, Disney finally made season 7 and gave the show a proper ending 6 years after its initial cancellation. I'm a bit biased, but trust me when I say that The Clone Wars is some of the best Star Wars material out there, and is also what the remaining TV shows, even The Mandalorian, stem from. So watch this first, and if you don't like cartoons, too bad, watch this ASAP. Star Wars Rebels is the first Star Wars show made directly by Disney. Taking place in the last 5 years before A New Hope, Rebels follows a group of, well, rebels, as they do their best to help the galaxy in the time of the Empire, and we slowly get to see how this one rebel cell joins up with others to form a larger rebellion that we would see in A New Hope. The main cast includes Ezra Bridger, an orphan kid from Lothal that trains to be a Jedi under Kanan Jarrus, a jaded Jedi who survived Order 66 as a kid, who's in love with the captain of their group, Hera Syndulla, a Twi'lek pilot who is the daughter of Sham from TCW. She is joined by her astromech droid Chopper, and a large Lasat named Zeb who serves as the muscle of the group, and then finally we have Sabine Wren, a young Mandalorian who used to work for the Empire. Together, they form the crew of The Ghost, which is the show's version of the Millennium Falcon. In fact, the entire show's art style is akin to the concept art for the original movies by Ralph McQuarrie, and this is the only TV show to be in this style. This show has the Empire in its prime. The main villains are the Imperial Inquisitors. These are Force-sensitive assassins trained by Darth Vader to kill the surviving Jedi. We will be seeing these guys in many other things going forward, but know that they first appeared here. The other main villain from the show is the Blue Daddy himself, Grand Admiral Thrawn. In fact, he would become the main threat for the second half of the show. This show starts off as its own thing, but after the season 1 finale, it starts to feel like a sequel of sorts to TCW, with the return of Ahsoka, Rex, Maul, Hondo, Bo-Katan, and some other people. Ahsoka and Maul have essential character moments from this show, hence why I would argue this show is a spiritual sequel to the Clone Wars. You also get some returning original characters like Vader, Tarkin, Wedge, General Dodonna, Old Ben Kenobi, and the Emperor. Unlike the Clone Wars, this show is a straight-up series. There's no flip-flopping in the timeline, no skippable arcs. It's as simple as can be. The show starts at point A and ends at point B, you know, like a normal show. While it doesn't have the same highs as TCW, it's still a damn good show with some amazing characters and some truly heartbreaking moments. Definitely don't skip this, and you'll see why as I go on. The next show I want to talk about is The Bad Batch. Introduced in the final season of the Clone Wars, Clone Force 99, aka the Bad Batch, are a group of Special Forces clone troopers who are mutated in some way. The Bad Batch consists of Hunter, their leader with enhanced senses, Crosshair, the marksman, Tech, the tech expert, Wrecker, a larger clone with super strength, and Echo from the first show. When the show begins, the Clone War comes to an end with Order 66 being issued. The Batch are divided on that and the New Order of the Galaxy when they return to Kamino and meet Omega, a special clone who is female and wasn't artificially aged. The whole show follows her and Hunter's father-daughter-like relationship and the mystery to what she is, while also having them deal with the Empire chasing them after they disobey an order. From there, we see the Batch on the run, doing jobs for the Trandoshan Sid while also helping Rex and the other clones fight against the Empire. The initial story of the Bad Batch starts off with them doing random jobs and missions, kind of like filler, but the episodes that focus on Crosshair and the larger story of what the Empire is doing to the clones is the reason why you watch this show. That aspect gets more and more focus as the show goes on, with the final third season mainly being about that. You get some returning characters here like Rex, Cody, Wolf, Gregor, as well as Sham Syndulla, again, Cad Bane, Tarkin, Saw Gerrera, Cutla Quain, and Senators Chuchi, Organa, and Bertoni. If you look close enough, you might even see Director Krennic from Rogue One. If Rebels is a sequel to The Clone Wars, Bad Batch is a continuation. It's actually a great middle point. You gradually watch as the Empire grows stronger, from delisting the clone troopers to the rise of the TK Trooper, which was the proto-stormtrooper. You'll even get to see a young Kanan in the beginning of the show, as well as a young Hera later on, which is why I'm mentioning this show now. It's like it was meant to be watched after Rebels despite taking place before. You also get to see a young Fennec Shand who would first appear in The Mandalorian, but we will get there soon enough. We have one more animated show to cover first. Okay, technically we have 2 more shows, or 3 depending on when this video comes out. Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire. but I'll lump them together and just call them Tales. Both of which are a collection of anthology shorts, each season focusing on 2 characters. Tales of the Jedi follows Ahsoka Tano. We see some of her early training and where she was after the Jedi Purge. We also follow Count Dooku before he truly fell to the dark side. We see why he has little trust or faith in the Republic and why he leaves the Jedi Order. The second series, Tales of the Empire, gets a little tricky for us, and you'll see why. The first part follows Barriss Offee during her time as an Imperial Inquisitor. In the background, you'll actually see other Inquisitors from the various other TV shows, including the Grand Inquisitor from Rebels and that one Inquisitor woman from Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's a nice connection. The second part of the show is where things get a little tricky, as we follow Morgan Elsbeth. We would actually first meet this character from the Mandalorian show and then the Ahsoka show. This just shows us her origins, how she survived the Clone Wars, her first meeting with Grand Admiral Thrawn, and then finally ends right before when she would make her first appearance in The Mandalorian Season 2. By itself, you could probably watch this part of the show and still be fine, but please know that this character will be a big-ish deal in the live-action shows. That's something I will give the Tales shorts, especially Tales of the Empire. They do a lot to connect the live-action and the animated TV shows, thus making Star Wars feel like one solid timeline, which it is. Lastly, the most recent Tales shows is Tales of the Underworld. Here we follow Asajj Ventress after the events of TCW and Bad Batch, as she teams up with this kid who survived Order 66. Then, we see the origin story for Cad Bane. Apparently his real name was Colby. Random choices for characters, but I'll take it, especially the Ventress stuff. Okay, so something I've noticed about these Tales shows. Each one generally connects to another type of Star Wars thing. What do I mean? Tales of the Jedi is meant to show how the animated stuff connects to the movies. We see Dooku during The Phantom Menace, we see Anakin and Obi-Wan in their Attack of the Clones hairstyles, even though that's not technically accurate for the time, but whatever. And we also see that Ahsoka was at Padme's funeral during Revenge of the Sith. Tales of the Empire, on the other hand, connects to the live-action shows, particularly the Ahsoka and Obi-Wan show. The Kenobi show is represented by this one Inquisitor chick in the Fortress Inquisitorius base. And the Ahsoka show connects to all the Morgan Elsbeth stuff. With Tales of the Underworld, we also get some Kenobi show connections, like the whole Path thing, but we also get some connections to the books, for once. I mean, it's only one book, but still. The show opens up during the end of Dark Disciple, so if you're wondering why Ventress was the way she was, and why Obi-Wan and Quinlan Vos were there, it's because of that book, which I think is pretty neat. And that's all I got for the Tales shows. Oh, and there's also that Darth Maul show that may or may not have Darth Talon in it. Woohoo-wee. Alright, enough of the damn cartoons. Time for some nice, mature, adult, live-action TV shows. Starting with the one with Baby Yoda. Right, if Clone Wars was the backbone to all the stuff outside of the movies, then I would also say that The Mandalorian was the backbone to all the live-action shows. Sort of. Taking place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, The Mandalorian follows Din Djarin, a Mandalorian who works as a bounty hunter when one day he receives a job to deliver a little baby creature that would later be named Grogu. At this time, the Empire was defeated, but a small bit of it lingered. This is the Imperial Remnant, and they would be recurring antagonists as the show went on. When Din refuses to give up Grogu, they set all the bounty hunters after him, and this is the main plot of Season 1. We find out more about Din and Grogu, like where they were when the Clone Wars happened and when all the Jedi were killed. The first season is very self-contained. You meet characters like Greef Karga, Cara Dune, Fennec Shand, Mayfield, and the villainous Moff Gideon. Season 2, on the other hand, is when the show felt like it needed to connect to everything else. In one episode, we see the live-action debut of Bo-Katan, played by her voice actress. Then we get Ahsoka Tano in live-action. Her one episode is meant to not only tie into Rebels with her search for Thrawn, but also sets up her own show for later on. And finally, we see the return of Boba Fett, which brings us to the reason why the viewing order for these live-action shows is so screwy. You can't just watch Mandalorian Season 1, 2, and 3. You gotta do Mandalorian Season 1, Mandalorian Season 2, then Book of Boba Fett, then Mandalorian Season 3. And then after that, Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew if you're feeling up to it. You see, Book of Boba Fett is integral to the events of Season 3. I won't say why, because spoilers, but if you go from Season 2 to 3, you're going to be confused. And I hate that they did this like this. You should be able to just watch the show you want and not miss key character development. It's like they're trying to be like the MCU. Like imagine watching Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, and then 3 without watching the Avengers. you'd be missing on some very important stuff. But yes, Book of Boba Fett. Taking place after he returns in The Mandalorian, Boba Fett goes to Tatooine to become the sole crime boss, taking over from Jabba the Hutt after his death. If you give this a watch, you'll see how it connects to The Mandalorian. You'll get other cameos, like Ahsoka is in this for some reason, and then you'll see the return of Cad Bane from the Clone Wars. Another weird thing. So, if you remember from the Clone Wars show, Cad Bane and Boba Fett were on good terms, but in this show, they're arch enemies. That's because of a deleted story arc from the show that only super nerds like me know about. So, if you're asking why don't they like each other, that's why. So that's done. Now that you've seen Mando Season 1 and 2 and Book of Boba Fett, now you're in the clear to watch Mando Season 3. I won't go too into the events of Season 3. I feel like if you watch everything this far, you're gonna watch Season 3. I will say though that you do get more big picture New Republic stuff in some of these episodes, which ties into the why the events of the sequels happen. In fact, there's a plot line with Moff Gideon and the Imperial Remnant that not only connects to the Bad Batch, but also sets up Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. In the Bad Batch, you learn that the Empire was taking over everything regarding cloning because good old Palpatine wanted to prolong his existence past death by cloning himself and having a forever empire. In Mandalorian Season 2 and 3, you learn more of that and how Grogu connects to it, just like how Omega connected to it in Bad Batch. And then we come to Ahsoka, as in the Ahsoka TV show. I personally consider Ahsoka to be the third part in a trilogy of shows, starting with the Clone Wars with how Ahsoka came from that, and with Rebels, to which this show is a continuation of. I mean, it's not Rebels Season 5, but you cannot watch this show without Rebels. You'll be so lost. But what is Ahsoka about? After the events of Rebels, Ahsoka and Sabine set off to find their lost friend Ezra, who sacrificed himself by transporting he and Grand Admiral Thrawn outside of the galaxy. All the while, we get to deal with Thrawn's underlings, 2 Dark Jedi and Morgan Elsbeth from before. We see a lot of characters from Rebels in live action, some of them being played by their voice actors, including Thrawn. So definitely check this out, but maybe watch Rebels first. And then after that is Skeleton Crew, a mostly separate TV show that follows a bunch of children led by a pirate on adventures across the galaxy. Very whimsical and innocent. This show is newer, so I won't go too much into it. I just know that this technically is in the Mandoverse, so it does connect to The Mandalorian and the others that I mentioned, but it's definitely more of a self-contained show than the others. But besides this, and the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming out later, and maybe in Ahsoka Season 2, this is the entire Mandoverse of shows, all of them connecting to each other. But there are still a few more TV shows to talk about, and luckily, they're all standalone, meaning you can just put them on whenever and not miss anything. The first of these shows I want you to know about is Andor, which may be the second best Star Wars TV show out right now, right behind Clone Wars. Andor starts off 5 years before Rogue One and A New Hope, and follows Cassian Andor. It's like his origin story of how he went from a random rogue guy to an essential part of the rebellion. It also shows how the rebellion became a thing, sort of, how they had to be all top secret because the Empire was just that powerful. Andor is the most mature show, not just with the violence and disturbing parts of the Empire, but also with the dialogue and writing. This is a show that will make you think, not only about how horrible the galaxy was at this point, but also how applicable the issues presented in this show are to the real world. All I know is that once you see this show, you're going to look at stormtroopers a lot differently. By the time you all see this video, Andor Season 2 will probably be out in its entirety. The show is meant to lead up to the events of Rogue One in a more direct way than Rebels did. It's almost like Rogue One became the series finale for both shows, like how Revenge of the Sith became the series finale to the Clone Wars. Typical Star Wars timeline retcon stuff. Our next self-contained show is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Taking place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, we see Obi-Wan in exile on Tatooine, looking after Luke in secret. When Bail Organa reaches out to Obi-Wan asking him to save Leia from the Inquisitors, he goes off an adventure to do just that. And that's what this show is about. This one can be watched whenever, as it doesn't directly connect to anything besides Revenge of the Sith. The only real connection is the fact that the Inquisitors are in this, but that's it. The main Inquisitor you follow, Reva, only appears here, so if this was the only Star Wars show you watched, you wouldn't be lost. I mean, there are way better shows out there, but you get my meaning. I'm pretty sure that this is getting a Season 2, so keep an eye out for that in the years to come. The last major show I'm going to cover is everyone's favorite show, The Acolyte. The best for last, of course. This show follows a couple of new Jedi characters as they try to figure out who has been going around killing other Jedi during a time of peace. But they need to be careful because these killings may or may not be linked to a growing darkness in the Republic and in the Force. So the Acolyte is a bit of a different animal than the other shows in when it takes place in the grand scheme of things. This show is part of the High Republic era, basically the golden age of the Republic and the Jedi, which was hundreds of years before any of the movies. This show takes place at the very end of that era, showing the beginning of the Jedi's decline. But don't worry about the books and stuff, you can watch the show in complete isolation. So yeah, if you want to see some Jedi action, a couple of cameos, and some admittedly really well done lightsaber fights, here you go. So yeah, basically that's all you need to know about the Star Wars TV shows available on Disney+. Now yes, I do know that there are some that I did not go over, but that's because I don't think that they're relevant to someone who is just now getting into Star Wars. But for the sake of knowledge, I will briefly mention them here. There's Star Wars Visions, which is a well-made anthology of animated shorts. While they don't directly connect to the larger universe, they are definitely worth a watch if you are interested in animation as an art form. Resistance is an animated show that focuses on young New Republic pilots during the time of the sequel movies. Characters like Poe Dameron and Kylo Ren make an appearance, and the show technically takes place before and after The Force Awakens. If you look close enough, you do see a character that comes back in the Ahsoka show, but other than that, I don't think you're missing too much by not watching this show. Forces of Destiny is another series of anthology animated shorts that follows the female characters of Star Wars. Made in tribute to Carrie Fisher, some of these shorts take place during some of the movies. Like, you see Rey fight Tito in The Force Awakens, and you see Leia meeting the Ewok village during Return of the Jedi. These shorts are good and all, but not as important as the others, I'd say. And then we got Young Jedi Adventures, which is basically Star Wars for babies, set in the High Republic of all places. And I don't mean to say that being for babies is bad, per se. I mean, Star Wars is for everyone. But if you had to choose between this and Andor, you're probably going to choose Andor. Okay, so that's all the shows, right? But Donker, you might say. You didn't mention the 2D Clone Wars show, nor Ewoks, nor droids. And you are correct, I did not. While those shows are good in their own right, or at least Clone Wars is, I won't be going over them at this time simply by the fact that they are no longer canon to the Star Wars timeline, so I didn't want to overcomplicate my whole spiel any further. Why don't these shows quote-unquote count anymore? That will be explained in the next video, but for now, I need to wrap it up. Okay, we went over a lot so far, a lot of Star Wars, but there's always going to be a lot of Star Wars because the stars always do be warring. Anyway, I made a little timeline for you guys. Here is where we began the video with just the movies. And now, let's add everything I went over today. It's a lot of stuff, so don't feel like you're missing out too much if you don't want to watch everything or anything here. This is all for fun, not work, right? And this timeline that I made is only just to show you when the shows take place in relation to each other. You do not need to watch everything in this order. In fact, you should not do that at all. Unlike the movies, there's really no essential watch order for this stuff. As long as you know that a lot of this stuff technically came from the Clone Wars, and as long as you know that the Mandoverse was meant to be watched in this order, you're good. Watch whatever piques your interest. If you want to know the release order for this stuff, just take a screenshot of this, but don't overthink it. If I were to recommend some shows to a newcomer, I would say The Clone Wars, Mandalorian, and Andor. The Clone Wars is some of the best Star Wars and is the best thing to come from the prequel era. The Mandalorian is a fun, action-packed show that has something for everyone. And Andor may be the objectively best Star Wars show ever. It's written in such a grounded and mature way that it really lifts up the franchise. But that's all I got for you today. I hope you learned something, and I hope that the next time you're scrolling through the Star Wars content on Disney+, you can be like, oh, I know what that's about, and choose what you want to watch because of it. Again, please do not feel like you need to watch everything you see. I mean, I didn't. I still have to watch The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, but all in good time.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
You know, we started the series pretty simple, covering all the movies and stuff. And today, we went a little deeper in the waters with introducing the Star Wars Expanded Universe and all the damn TV shows. But next time, I will wrap up this whole operation with the really niche stuff. Join me next time as I go over some of the video games, comics, and books of the Star Wars universe, aka everything else. I'm Donker Dank. I make videos about the things that I like that I have no one else to talk about with. See you in a second.